Alright, so a lot of guys are asking, how do I make it become physical when I'm with a girl, and if I'm talking to her and I really want to make that physical connection, and it seems like we're flirting a lot, but maybe at some point the conversation just sort of dies and it just doesn't do anything, you're kind of done. How do you keep this from happening? Well, physical connection and physical attraction is all related to physical touch, of course. It's not just about you see somebody. Like for men, we see a girl, she's hot, we immediately want to get physical with her. Women aren't necessarily like that. There's a lot of boundaries that they have to feel safe with you first, because they get in a situation where you're dealing with a much more overpowering man and they don't trust the guy and something bad could happen. So in order to build that physical trust, we have to touch from the moment we meet a woman. So as soon as you meet her, you want to touch, but not in a creepy way. And the way that you do that is when you first meet somebody, you're only touching areas that are acceptable to strangers. Shoulders are good. Sometimes a little bit lower in the arm is fine. Sort of like palm on the back, upper back, not lower back yet. Now you can break these rules, of course, but when you do, you're going to speed up the escalation, the physical escalation, and you may push beyond her boundaries. She may be upset. She may pull back. It's up to you, and you can gauge that as you go. But ultimately, in the beginning, if you want to be safe while you're flirting and having fun, in the very beginning when you first meet her, you have to just show her that you're the kind of guy that does touch everyone. Now, in that friendly kind of way, that pat on the back, arm on the shoulder kind of thing, you do need to touch everyone. If she sees you just doing it to her, then she's going to be like, well, this guy obviously just wants to get me in bed, and that's why he's touching me so much. And she will be instantly turned off. Most likely, she might not. Obviously, if she isn't, then you're good, you know. But if you want to play it safe and you want to know what you're doing, then you have to pay attention to these rules and try to break them as much as possible. So touch in the areas that are acceptable for most people, and touch everyone often. Then once you get into rapport, that stage where you start to connect with her emotionally, where you're talking to her about things that actually matter, at that point, you have to continue the touch. So many guys just drop the touch at that point, and they sort of make distance. For someone sits on that side, and I sit on this side, and then I kind of can't communicate anymore my touch because they're sitting across from me. It's important that whenever you get to the stage of rapport, you are touching still. You're moving down to lower in the arms, and you're touching for a longer period of time. In the beginning, you want to touch for no longer than 3 seconds. 3 seconds max. 1, 2, 3. Take your hand off. Move it to a different spot. And don't look at your hand when you touch either. So you're going to touch, and when you get into rapport, you're going to touch for longer, sometimes 8 seconds, 5 or 8 seconds. Keep your hand lingering for a little bit longer in other comfortable areas, her hands. You can then touch her hair as well, if she's comfortable with it, of course. Make sure you gauge and you use the rules that you learn in the Tao of Badass, the book, and learn as much as you can from that, obviously. So calibrate, and then as long as you do that, while you're going through the process of touching throughout the entire interaction, and as you're building emotional trust and you're touching, then she's going to trust your touch as well. So it's not just she's not just going to trust you and your emotional openness with her. She's also going to trust your touch with her, your physical nature with her, and then there'll be no gap to jump over whenever you are getting physical with her. So if you're with a girl, you haven't touched her at all, and you're like, oh, how do I get physical? One way you can tell if she wants to kiss you is to do what's called triangulation. A triangulation is where you look at her, one of her eyes, then at the other, then back at the other again, and then down at her mouth, then up at her eye, and then back and then down her mouth. And this makes it an upside down triangle, which is why it's called triangulation or triangular gazing. When you do this, it sends a subconscious signal to her that, it doesn't say to her that you want to kiss her necessarily. It makes her, if she has any kind of feeling about wanting to kiss you back, it makes that come up. And what will end up happening is she'll start doing it back to you. She does it back to you, it's all subconscious, she does, it's on, and you need to go for the kiss. Right then. That's important. And you can even say, what I used to say is, it's okay. And she would say, what do you mean it's okay? What are you talking about? And I would say, well, it's okay, you can kiss me, I want to kiss you too. And then go for it. That way you can tell immediately if that happens, for sure she wants to. If it doesn't happen, then you can bounce back and you can keep on continuing to build attraction as well. Read more, of course, at thedaoofbadass.com and buy my book. Fantastic book. It's got everything I know in it. It's got $1,500 worth per day of information, and over 5 days total worth of information. So it's a lot of information and very valuable.